We have lots to discuss here in today's video, including some trade talk around teams like the Panthers and the Devils. Plus, we have some trade as well as offer sheet and signing updates around the Mason McTavish situation with the Anaheim Ducks. Where are things trending? What is the holdup? And where do things stand between him and Anaheim? Plus, the future of Max Pacioretty. There is speculation he may end up playing in Canada again next year, but perhaps with another team, perhaps this time in Western Canada. Plus, we have an update from the NHL on what we call the Stanley Awards. The 2025 NHL club business meetings took place with a lot of teams giving awards for things that happen off the ice. Did your NHL favorite team win an award? We'll discuss what was handed out there. A bunch of different teams were taking home the hardware. Plus, we have another longtime veteran announcing his retirement. And we also have an update coming soon as well on the World Junior Trial with the verdict coming soon. We'll discuss all that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss here in today's video. Before we jump into the news and all the stuff around the league today, I do want to take a quick moment and take a look back on this day in hockey history. On this day in 2012, 13 years ago, was the day that we saw the big Rick Nash trade from the Columbus Blue Jackets to the New York Rangers. Obviously, it was a huge trade. Of course, Rick Nash, the former first overall pick, was a huge player for the Blue Jackets for a long time. Ended up getting dealt. Of course, just a couple days ago as well was the 3-year anniversary of the Matthew Tkachuk trade as well from Calgary to Florida for Huberdeau and Weegar. That was a huge trade that happened in late July here as well. So certainly, even though it's far from the peak of the offseason where you see a lot of activity around July 1st or the NHL draft, we're still at a point where you do get some big deals later into the offseason, and many still think here between late July and early August there's going to be another trade market kind of open up with a flurry of activity, which we'll discuss here in just a little bit. As well, of course, before we jump into the news, just want to remind everybody that tomorrow could be a very big day around the NHL and the game of hockey in general. We are expecting the verdict on the, of course, the trial from the 2018 World Junior Canadian players that are facing sexual assault charges. We know that the trial's been complete. Everything has been heard, and the judge had announced previously that they would be making their verdict and their announcement on Thursday, July the 24th. I'm not sure exactly what time this is going to be announced or when the court's going to be holding session there, but certainly going to be a big day. We'll find out the fate of the 5 players. Now, keep in mind as well that we're not necessarily getting one verdict here. They're all facing charges. Some players could be found not guilty. Some players could be found guilty. They could all be facing different situations here in the end. So, of course, a reminder, Michael McLeod, Alex Formanton, Carter Hart, Dylan Dubé, and Cal Foote all have charges. Michael McLeod has a secondary charge as well for being, I think what's called being party to the situation. So obviously he's got potential for further time if he's found guilty than the other guys do. But at the end of the day, there is some speculation that if some of these players are found not guilty and they're able to go free and walk from this, that there could be teams interested in signing them. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but it could be a big story to watch here over the remainder of the summer. So it's really kind of difficult to say. Of course, they have to be found not guilty and be free to go before that can even be a possibility. So we'll wait and see the judge's decision tomorrow. But there have been some rumblings around the league that at least a few teams are kind of watching this to see how things play out. I know there are some people that are pretty adamant that regardless of the verdict, they shouldn't be let back in the league. But ultimately, if a player is not found guilty, I don't know if there's really anything we can do about it. Like, the NHL is probably unlikely to impose additional sanctions or punishment. At least you wouldn't think. I don't know. Is this a situation we haven't really ran into before? But it's going to be obviously interesting to get the judge's decision. And we have to prep ourselves for the possibility that these players may be attempting to make a comeback to their hockey careers if they get the verdict to go in their favor. So we'll see where it goes. I followed this trial extremely closely. I don't really have a gut feeling for how it's going to turn out. There was a lot of things that sounded one way or the other to me that I'm not sure. I really don't know how the judge is going to view this. But at the end of the day, we have to prepare ourselves that it's going to be the stories coming back into the forefront here in the news cycle. So we'll talk about this further tomorrow once we know the outcome, and we'll see what happens next with these 5 players. As I mentioned as well, we got the 2025 NHL club business meetings have been taking place, and they handed out what they call the Stanleys, which is a bunch of hardware. It's awards for teams in the NHL that, not for obviously things they do on the ice, but for a lot of the things that they do off the ice. Obviously, there's a variety of things here. So one of them, for example, was Best Marketing Campaign. The winner of that award was the Utah Mammoth for their marketing of their campaign for their home opener. So their home opener campaign was the best marketing campaign in the NHL, according to the voters of this on this award. It's the first time Utah, of course, being a fairly new franchise, has ever won one of the Stanleys. We also had the Social Impact and Growth Initiatives, which went to the Nashville Predators for their Music Heritage Nights, 4 nights inspired by music of Nashville's diverse makeup, including Hispanic Pride, API, and Black Music Heritage. It's the second time they've won an award of the Stanleys of this sort. There's also the Social Media Club of the Year, which turned out to be the Winnipeg Jets. So that's their first win. So obviously they were deemed to have the best social media content. Sponsorship activation, which went to the Toronto Maple Leafs for the Oreo Stay Playful promotion. It's the 5th time that the Maple Leafs have won an award for this serve of the Stanleys. There's the Ticketing Initiative, which went to the Detroit Red Wings for the designer merch collaboration. It's the first time they've won a Stanley Award. We've also got in-game presentation, which went to the Tampa Bay Lightning. It's also their first time winning an award. The Venue Business Initiative, which went to the New Jersey Devils. That's for their Center Pier Club and East Back Kitchen at the Prudential Center. So, of course, that's a unique award as well. The Devils win that one. And then there's the Strategy, Analytics, and Innovation Award, which went to the St. Louis Blues for their Blues Dynamics and Blues app, which is the first time that they've won an award as well. So a bunch of first-time winners, which is good to see, and obviously nice to see the NHL recognize teams for a lot of the important work they do off the ice within different other levels of their, different groups and parts of the franchise that go into making the team what it is. So that's good to see. As I mentioned as well, we had another NHL veteran announce their retirement, and it's Nathan Beaulieu, of course, former first-round pick back in 2011, originally drafted by the Montreal Canadiens. He had played 11 NHL seasons. Nathan Beaulieu, of course, was one of 3 first-round picks from his junior club, which is close by here to me, the St. John Sea Dogs. They had an incredible run in St. John with the Sea Dogs while he was there, including his other teammates who also went in the first round, including Jonathan Huberdeau, as well as Zach Phillips. They had quite the team. They were Memorial Cup champions, 2-time Quebec League champions while he was there as well. So he had a tremendous junior career. Ended up playing 471 NHL games, of course, as a rugged defenseman. As time went on, he kind of took on he wasn't really necessarily known for being a rugged defenseman who fought or did things like that in junior. I mean, maybe a little bit, but it kind of became more of a role he had to embrace to find his way into more NHL games and minutes, kind of adjusting to the roles that teams needed, I guess, to extend his career, so to speak. But, I mean, he wasn't afraid to drop the gloves. He was certainly not afraid to play physical style. Ended up, like I said, 471 games with Montreal. Also played with Buffalo, Winnipeg as well. Finish up with the Jets. Oh, and also a little bit with the Ducks, too. Played with 4 teams, had 98 points. Played on the Canadian World Junior team in 2012. Unfortunately, didn't come up with a gold medal, but did bring home a bronze. Overall, might not have quite lived up to the hype of being a first-round pick and what have you, but still carved out a pretty solid career, something he can be proud of. Like I said, accomplished a lot, especially at the junior ranks. So certainly congrats to Nathan Beaulieu. He did play overseas in this past year and has decided at the young age of 32 to call her a career. So congrats to him on that. And the rumor mill, we'll take a look at a variety of things here. We'll start with the Mason McTavish situation. Now, of course, he's been a player that's been getting a lot of attention here in the last number of weeks. I know leading into July 1, there was a lot of RFAs that we looked at for offer sheet targets. We really thought, based on all the chatter around the league, that there was a pretty good possibility we would see an offer sheet this offseason. And so far, we have 0. There's not many players left who could even sign one, but Mason McTavish is one of those players. So it's not a foregone conclusion that it won't happen, although I don't think the odds are overly favorable, mainly because the Anaheim Ducks do have a lot of salary cap space, and if they really want to, they could match just about anything. And I don't know that a team is going to go to the point, at the top level, for example, over $11 million or something to cough up 4 first rounders. Yeah, McTavish is a heck of a player. A lot of teams would love to have him. I don't know if they're going to go that far with the compensation that they're willing to give up. So ultimately, we want to look at some comments here from Ben Kuzma of the province out of BC. He says that the McTavish holdup basically is that there's quite a difference in valuation here between the team and the player. According to AFP Analytics, which is a source I use a lot to kind of gauge future contract values, they have McTavish estimated at a 6-year deal around 6.5 or 6.6, 6.7 million range. Well, according to Kuzma here, he says that McTavish's camp is looking between 7 upwards of 8 million. So you could probably put that somewhere in the middle. So you're probably looking at least $1 million gap, I would say. Now, I don't know for sure that the Ducks and Pat Verbeek are offering in that 6.5, 6.6 range. I don't know that they are, but obviously McTavish is looking for a lot more than even what they had estimated. So clearly, that's why we have a major impasse here so far. We don't know. Pat Verbeek is pretty stubborn, and he's going to get what he wants. He's grinded out some of these players in some long drawn-out negotiations during his few years as a GM with the Ducks here. So it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. I mean, clearly, we know McTavish wasn't eligible for arbitration, so that has an impact here. So that's why there was none filed. But the offer sheet is a possibility. Now, at some point, if his camp and his agent get frustrated enough, maybe they go that route. And it's not even if he signs an offer sheet, if a team is willing to give it to him, doesn't even mean for sure that he wants to leave. But if he's confident that Anaheim will match, either way, he gets the contract he wants. And maybe he gets to stay too. I'm not really sure. We'd heard some reports from Frank Saravalli that he thought McTavish could benefit from a change of scenery. We've heard him say that there was, some frustration on McTavish's part for where they see him in the lineup and whatever. But I mean, I know based on Verbeek's comments before, it sure sounds like he plans on having McTavish in a pretty high role in the top 6 consistently this year. Probably have a chance to play with some of the newer wingers like Chris Kreider. Of course, we got a new head coach there, Joel Quenneville. So I don't know how this plays out exactly, but there certainly seems to be a major gap in money. And we know that deadlines tend to help get problems solved. And unfortunately, for right now, between these two sides, there really is no deadline until we get to training camp. And then you're talking about missing time at camp. But you're still not talking about missing paychecks, because unless you miss a game, you're not missing paychecks. So those are the deadlines that tend to move things along faster. Wouldn't be shocking to me if Verbeek and the Ducks really drug this out, unless McTavish's camp really lowers what they're looking for. So we'll see where this goes. It could lead to a trade. It could lead to an offer sheet. It could lead to a signing. I don't know how it's going to go, but that is reportedly the holdup and where things stand between both sides. Also, some updates as well when it comes to the Florida Panthers. We know a lot of people are expecting the Panthers to make a cost-cutting move. I know Dan Rosen of NHL.com's latest comments on his latest piece confirms that there's a lot of teams that have either monitoring the situation or have already or will be reaching out to the Panthers to discuss Rodriguez's availability. Now, a lot of people look at him making $3 million. He's a valuable veteran player who's benefited from a lot of great experience down there in Florida in the past couple of years. So, he's a great contract for what he brings you. And at the same time, Florida knows this as well. Now, keep in mind that the Panthers theoretically, I say, need to make a move. But I honestly wonder if the bigger factor in all this is the health of Matthew Tkachuk. Now, we heard after the season, after the cup was handed out and the Panthers repeated as champions, what Matthew Tkachuk was dealing with. And based on what he made it sound like, He didn't say 100% that surgery was going to be needed, but it sure sounded to me like it was quite a real possibility. Now, we haven't heard of anything like that because Matthew Tkachuk's had a lot going on in his life. He just in the past week had his wedding that was obviously pre-planned for a long time. So he got married. Then he, right after, within a couple of days, had his day with the Stanley Cup. So obviously, he's had a lot going on there. So if he is going to be looking at any kind of surgery, then it's certainly going to come. I wouldn't be shocked if it happens later into the offseason, close to training camp or something like that. Now, the belief is if he has surgery for what he was dealing with, that he's probably going to miss half the year. So if this is true, now, unless he can be, even if he doesn't have surgery, I personally think if they go the rest and rehab route, which just doesn't seem likely to me, but even if that's the case, it's going to take a long time here. I don't see him being ready to start the season. But he said that, one of his bones was completely off, or one of the muscles was completely off the bone. I think it was his adductor muscle, and obviously had a major, groin issue. So I just don't see how Matthew Tkachuk is ready to start the season. So if they already are aware of this, they're not going to trade Rodriguez. Now, they may be forced to do so later, but you never know, right? That's the benefit of having that situation, that they go into the season, maybe somebody else gets hurt before Tkachuk comes back. If they have another player that's going to be out long term, they can keep buying themselves time, and maybe Rodriguez gets to stay part of, or maybe the whole year. But teams are watching close. There's lots of interest in this player. The Panthers want to make a move. They can. I can see them waiting, though, until they have more clarity on Tkachuk. As I mentioned as well, Max Pacioretty could be landing a contract soon, and it's going to be probably require a bit of another move to free up some money, and it probably would be a bonus-laden contract. But there is some speculation the Oilers could be the landing spot for Pacioretty. Based on all the other forward moves we've seen Toronto make, it doesn't seem likely that he returns to the Maple Leafs. But of course, after losing Corey Perry, there is some belief that the Oilers would be interested in bringing him in to possibly play a similar type of role, somebody who can play up and down your lineup. We know he's got good size. He's got lots of experience. We even saw during his time with the Leafs in the playoffs that he's not afraid to be a physical guy and throw some hits and can score some big goals for you. You're not going to rely on him necessarily every night. You're not necessarily going to rely on him to be, clutch every game or anything. But if he can give you, even if it's 10, 15 goals and play a good role during the playoffs and be a big body physical guy net front, like there's lots of things he can do similar to Perry. I don't know. I think right now, to be honest, I would think Perry seems to have a little bit more of that scoring touch still around him, but not to say that Pacioretty couldn't have that possibility too. So there is a possible scenario where we see Pacioretty sign at Edmonton. Now, they're really tight to the cap, so I'm not sure exactly how that would work out. Obviously, like I said, it would be a case if it happens, probably with a really low salary and bonuses built in, but they may have to find a subsequent move here to make the money, or it's hard to say. Also in New Jersey, Nico Dawes is another goalie to watch as well, and could even be a potential landing spot in Edmonton too. The Devils goalies getting a variety of interest around the league, not only from Edmonton, but apparently teams like Calgary, to some degree Vegas. I don't imagine Vegas is quite as serious, but according to James Nichols of the New Jersey Hockey Now, those are the teams that he says he's heard of inquired on Dawes' services. But I mean, he's 24 years old. He's no longer waivers exempt, and many feel that he would be a prime candidate that the Devils will lose on waivers for nothing. That when they go into the season, when they have to trim their roster down. We already know that he's not going to make their NHL roster with Jacob Markstrom there, and then re-signing Jake Allen to a 5-year deal. They pretty much just boxed him out of the NHL for at least a couple more years. And at 24, they're going to not going to want to lose him to waivers for nothing, and he's going to want more of a chance to play. And the Oilers as well. Like I said, not only does he make sense for them, but the Oilers were interested in Arturs Shilovs out of Vancouver, and I've seen some reports suggesting that the Canucks absolutely refused to even consider sending him to Edmonton. So before, we had heard that they lost out, that they had inquired, but we didn't really know a lot more about it. But word is that they really didn't want to send him to a rival like Edmonton. So the Edmonton Oilers are going to be forced to look elsewhere to try to find some goaltending changes here. And I don't know how quickly we're going to see a move in this scenario, but I can see it being quite likely and quite possible that the Devils do move Dawes before the season starts, or at least before they have to cut him out of training camp, to make sure that they don't lose him to nothing on waiver. So we'll see what happens, but another young goaltender that is likely going to be playing for a new team next year, but we'll see where things go. Let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.